Gemini, a life-changing payment is coming, and it will guide you in a new direction. Do you ever feel like you've been quietly giving more than you received, offering your time, energy, love, and ideas into the world, hoping something meaningful would return, but hasn't? There's been a weight on your spirit, a silent imbalance you've carried, even when your smile said otherwise. But what if I told you that the universe has not only noticed, but is preparing to respond in a way that will change your direction, your self-worth, and your entire life? This isn't just about money, Gemini. This is about value, about restoration, a cosmic return for all the ways you've poured yourself out for others without ever fully being replenished. And that moment of balancing, the moment when the universe whispers, "It's your time now," is closer than you think. What's coming your way may not arrive in the form you expect, but it will feel like justice, like recognition, like relief. And more than anything, it will open a door to a life that reflects the truth of who you are, not the roles you played to survive. If you felt that quiet pulse of change within you, you're not imagining it. The tides are turning. And if this message touches something deep in you, I invite you to share, and subscribe as we walk through this extraordinary realignment together. Gate 1. The invisible debt is being paid back. Gemini, for so long you played the role of the giver, the one who shows up, holds space, listens deeply, solves quickly. You're the one who remembers birthdays, who texts first, who offers ideas freely, who gives second and third chances without needing to be asked. And in the midst of this generosity, you've often been left wondering, why do I feel so unseen in return? There's been an invisible debt building in the energetic field around you, a cosmic ledger keeping quiet tally of all the times you said yes when your body said no, all the times you uplifted others while your own spirit was wilting, all the times you offered your wisdom, creativity, and compassion without ever asking for it to be matched. But the universe, it doesn't forget. What's coming to you now, Gemini, is not a reward. It's a rebalancing, an energetic reimbursement for the spiritual labor you've poured into the world. And it's arriving because you're finally ready to receive it, not from entitlement, but from clarity. Let's take the story of Daniel, a Gemini son who spent years building a business that uplifted everyone but himself. He paid his team generously, stayed up late troubleshooting problems for clients, made space for everyone's voices, but rarely expressed his own needs. It wasn't burnout that broke him. It was the realization that he built a life where everyone was thriving except him. When his first client of the month sent an unsolicited 5-figure bonus after a breakthrough project, Daniel wept. Not because of the money, but because something deep inside finally felt seen. Or look at Lynn, Gemini moon and rising, the unofficial therapist in her friend group. She always knew the right thing to say, the healing reframe, the practical suggestion. But when she went through a quiet emotional crisis, no one noticed. One night she wrote in her journal, "I feel like an unpaid light." A week later, a former student she hadn't spoken to in years emailed her with a long letter. "You saved me, and I don't think I ever thanked you. I'm sending you something." It wasn't the gift that mattered. It was a restoration of a connection that reminded her, you were never invisible to the universe. Gemini, this is where you are now. What's coming toward you isn't about luck or coincidence. It's justice. And not the loud, legal kind, the quiet, karmic kind. The kind of justice that comes when the scales are tilted too far for too long, and the universe decides to rebalance, not as a favor, but as a natural law. This payment may arrive as money, yes, but it may also come as opportunity, support, visibility, clarity, or energetic release. It may be a job that pays more than you thought you deserved, a collaborator who wants to lift your voice, a debt forgiven, a path cleared, a dream reactivated, a yes that opens everything. And while you may feel tempted to question it, do I deserve this? Let me be clear, you do. You are not being repaid for what you did. You are being aligned with what you've always been. Someone who kept showing up with grace, intelligence, and generosity, even when no one clapped, even when the room was silent, even when you secretly hoped someone would finally ask how you were doing. This moment marks a sacred shift in how you relate to your own worth. You no longer need to earn affection through effort. You no longer need to prove your intelligence by being useful. You no longer need to offer more just to feel enough. You are enough, as you are, and the payment you're about to receive is simply the universe saying, thank you for holding the balance for so long. Now it's time to hold something for yourself. So what does receiving look like now? It looks like saying yes without guilt. It looks like letting money flow to you without needing to work overtime to justify it. It looks like being honored in rooms where you used to be overlooked. It looks like a softness returning to your body because your nervous system no longer expects imbalance. Gemini, if you've noticed strange signs lately, old debts being closed, surprising opportunities reappearing, people expressing overdue gratitude, unexpected invitations, this is the energy at work. Pay attention. Don't dismiss it. These aren't accidents. These are echoes of cosmic order moving into place. And more than anything, this moment is an invitation. Because every payment comes with a choice. Will you use it to repeat the old pattern or to create a new path? You are not who you were when you gave so much without return. You're not here to go back to scarcity, self-doubt, or survival. You're here to expand, to pour energy into your own life, to allow your dreams to finally bloom with the same tenderness you gave to everyone else's. You've been generous. Now, be generous with yourself. Because Gemini, your time is not coming. It's here. Gate 2, the payment unlocks a new direction. Gemini, you're standing at a threshold. A cosmic gift is on its way. Perhaps it's already arrived in subtle forms. And when it comes a question, not from the world, but from your own soul, what will you do with what's finally being returned to you? The energetic payment you're receiving isn't just a reward. It's a key. And keys only matter if you're willing to open the door they're meant to unlock. That door, it leads to a life that looks different from the one you've been living. It asks for new priorities, new agreements with yourself, and most of all, a willingness to let go of the systems and roles that have kept you over-functioning and under-supported. For years, Gemini, you've shaped your life around what others needed. You've been the multitasker, the peacekeeper, the idea generator, the emotional anchor. Your adaptability has allowed you to thrive in multiple versions of yourself. But now, that adaptability is being called home, not to be erased, but to be reclaimed. Because this payment, however manifests, is giving you something most people rarely receive. A reset, not a pause, a directional shift, a chance to choose differently, this time not from depletion, but from empowerment. Take Mateo, a Gemini with Mercury and Mars in the 10th house. For a decade, he'd worked a job that matched his skill set but suffocated his spirit. The money was stable, but the emotional cost was too high. When an old acquaintance suddenly offered him a lucrative remote opportunity, doing something creative and flexible, he almost declined out of habit. It felt too good, he said, like I hadn't earned it the hard way. But something told him, ease is not always a trap. So he accepted. 1 year later, he travels freely, earns more, and finally wakes up with energy instead of anxiety. Or consider Ava, a Gemini rising who'd spent most of her life overcompensating in romantic partnerships, giving more, fixing more, hoping love would come through service. Then one day, an unexpected inheritance allowed her to move out of a shared living situation that drained her. She found a small apartment with sunlight and silence, and for the first time, she chose not partnership, but peace. That peace changed her entire trajectory, emotionally, creatively, spiritually. Gemini, when the universe deposits something into your life, a payment, an opportunity, a moment of grace, it's not just for comfort, it's to reposition you. The question is, are you willing to move? This direction may not look logical to your old self. It may involve choosing what feels good over what feels responsible, choosing art over obligation, stillness over proving, rest over noise. A single, sacred yes to yourself, even if it disappoints others. You're not here to maintain a version of your life that was built from sacrifice. You're here to create one built on reciprocity. And that means allowing some things to end. Old roles, old dynamics, old guilt, the identity of the fixer, the overthinker, the overgiver, the belief that ease is suspicious. That pleasure must be paid for with pain. All of that Gemini, belongs to the version of you who lived in energetic debt. And that debt, it's being cleared. Now, you're being asked to stop centering your life around other people's chaos, to stop orbiting around relationships that require you to overfunction just to feel safe, to stop measuring your worth and how well you hold everything together. You're not here to hold it all anymore. You're here to hold yourself. This new direction may look quiet at first, subtle, private. You might wake up one morning and simply feel, I don't want to do that anymore, or I'm ready to go there. Follow it. Don't wait for validation. Clarity is a form of currency, and right now, you're being paid in truth. And what will you build with that truth? A creative path you'd shelved out of practicality? A relationship where reciprocity isn't negotiated, it's natural? A home that reflects your actual spirit, not your resume? A daily rhythm that honors your nervous system, not your calendar? The direction you take now will not be about pleasing others. It will be about honoring yourself. It will be about creating a life that feels sustainable, joyful, whole. That may mean fewer people understand you, but the ones who do, they'll match you. You won't have to teach them how to treat you. They'll meet you on the same frequency you've worked so hard to return to. Gemini, the universe is not testing you. It's trusting you with restoration, with opportunity, with the possibility of a life where your energy no longer leaks out of unhealed patterns. And all you need to do now is this: receive fully, then choose differently. Say yes where you once hesitated. Say no where you once justified. Say nothing at all when silence speaks louder than explanation. Say thank you, not just to the universe, but to yourself, for staying, for giving, for now, finally receiving. This is a new direction. One built not on proving, but on presence. Not on performance, but on peace. Not on managing others, but on coming home to yourself. Gemini, the payment has arrived. The path is clear. And the power? It's always been yours. Gate 3. When you stop earning love and start living worth. Gemini, the most radical shift you'll experience during the season isn't financial. It isn't professional. It isn't even relational. It's internal. Because for the first time, you are being invited to uncouple your worth from your performance, your value from your usefulness, your lovability from your labor. And that shift, it's terrifying and liberating. You see, this payment that's arriving is not just balancing cosmic books. It's revealing the quiet beliefs that have shaped your identity. That love must be earned. That approval must be chased. That rest must be justified. And perhaps the most painful, that you are only worthy if you are doing. But Gemini, what if you could be deeply worthy just by being? For so long, you've led with your intellect, your charm, your adaptability. These are powerful gifts, but they've often been used as armor. You've shown up as a smart one, the witty one, the helper. You've used productivity as proof. You've leaned into achievement as access. And underneath it all, you've silently wondered, would they still love me if I wasn't so useful? Let me tell you now, the answer is yes. And if someone wouldn't, then they never really saw you in the first place. This new direction the universe is nudging you into, it's not about finally getting what you deserve so you can keep operating at the same pace. It's about rewriting the reason you ever thought you had to run that hard to begin with. Take Ella, a Gemini sun with Chiron in the second house. Wounds around self-worth ran deep. She over-delivered in every area of life. Her friendships? She was a glue. Her career? She answered emails at midnight. Her partner? She became their therapist. But then, an unexpected financial windfall allowed her to take a month off. At first, she felt guilty, then anxious, then empty, but eventually free. Because in that space, she realized her worth didn't diminish without productivity. In fact, her presence grew more magnetic when she stopped trying to prove it. Gemini, this is your moment to relearn how to exist without performance, to allow love in without scripting it, to let admiration come without orchestrating it, to receive without immediately planning how to give back. Because receiving is not a debt, it's a flow, and you spent years blocking that flow by constantly redirecting it toward others. But now, You're being asked to sit still and feel the fullness of being supported. Not because you demand it, but because you deserve it. And with this shift in worth, your standards will change. You'll stop accepting breadcrumbs of attention from people who only reach out when they need something. You'll stop saying yes to every invitation that feels like obligation. You'll stop offering explanations for boundaries that require no defense. Why? Because the version of you who begged for belonging is gone, and the version of you who embodies belonging has arrived. You'll begin to ask different questions. Not, how can I prove myself here? But, do I feel safe to be myself here? Not, what do they think of me? But, how do I feel around them? Not, what can I do to be seen? But, why am I shrinking just to stay? This redefinition of self-worth will touch every area of your life. In your relationships, you'll stop tolerating one-sided emotional dynamics. You'll start craving reciprocity, not from neediness, but from wholeness. And those who only knew the version of you who gave endlessly may drift. Let them. You're no longer performing for love. You're embodying it in your work. You may notice that you're drawn to paths that feel nourishing, not just impressive. You'll start aligning your creativity with purpose, not pressure. You'll say yes to projects that light you up, not just those that check a box. And because you're operating from overflow, not obligation, your magnetism will increase. In your inner world, the most miraculous shift of all, you'll feel calm. Not the calm of suppression, but the calm of self-trust. You won't feel the need to fill every silence, or fix every issue, or hustle for peace. You'll begin to recognize that your presence is healing, not your performance. This isn't about becoming lazy. It's about becoming honest. Honest about the fact that you're no longer willing to betray yourself just to be accepted. You've earned the right to rest, to receive, to exist in fullness, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. And the people who are meant for this new version of you, they won't need the old performance to feel comfortable. They'll want you, not your output, not your labor. You. So breathe. Let it in. The worth, the peace, the gentle, growing confidence that says, I don't have to earn what I already am. Gemini, you are not becoming worthy. You are remembering you always were. Gate 4, designing a life that honors a new you. Gemini, once you remembered your worth, the world you inhabit must change to reflect it. You cannot go back to spaces that required you to abandon yourself. You cannot keep routines that drain you. You cannot maintain relationships that only survive because you kept shrinking. This is the gate of reconstruction, not a surface-level glow-up, but a foundational restructuring of how your reality functions. Now that your internal architecture has shifted, the walls around you must move as well. And it begins with the environment. Look around you. What in your space still belongs to an older version of you? The one who tolerated chaos, clutter, noise, or disconnection just to stay busy or distracted. This might be the job that pays but doesn't honor you. The social circle that feels familiar but no longer resonates. The schedule that keeps you constantly productive but never actually fulfilled. You are being asked to create spaces that restore you, not just support your obligations. Maybe that means rearranging your room so the light hits your desk differently. Maybe it means cutting your commute to honor your nervous system. Maybe it means unsubscribing from emails, group chats, or emotional contracts that no longer reflect who you are becoming. Gemini, your outer world must now match your inner calibration, because harmony is not just about energy. It's also about environment. Let's talk about your resources. The payment you've received or are about to receive is not just money, it's energy. And energy, when directed with intention, becomes reality. The question now is, are you investing this new current into a life that nourishes you? Take Sarah, a Gemini with a second house sun, who received an unexpected consulting opportunity that brought in more income than she ever had in 1 month. At first, she was tempted to pour into bills and obligations. But instead, she paused. She asked, what if I use some of this to actually build the life I've been deferring for years? She hired a coach, created a studio, and launched a side project she'd been dreaming about since her 20s. 6 months later, that side project became her main income. But more importantly, it became her main expression of joy. Your resources are not here to make you feel safer in an old life. They're here to help you build a new one. This might look like renting a space that reflects your soul's beauty, taking a sabbatical to reconnect with your body's rhythm, hiring help instead of being the one who always handles everything, choosing quality over quantity, in time, in things, in people. And yes, this will likely mean you have to let go of something. A role, a relationship, a rhythm that once worked but no longer fits. Release it. It's not betrayal. It's alignment. Your relationships will shift, too. Now that you're no longer earning love through sacrifice, you'll begin to crave relationships that mirror that same respect. You'll desire depth over convenience, reciprocity over drama. You'll be magnetized toward people who don't just take your light, but offer theirs too. This will likely cause some thinning of the circle. But remember, the clearing is not punishment. It's preparation. You are no longer available for conversations that leave you drained, dynamics where you parent instead of partner, friendships built on codependency rather than truth, working relationships where your ideas are extracted but your presence is overlooked. You are now only available for connection that feels equal, where your insight is seen, your emotions are held, and your energy is valued. Gemini, don't be surprised if your creative life starts blooming in unexpected ways. Now that your system is no longer running on survival mode, your imagination will flourish. Ideas will come that feel wild, exciting, and soul-driven. You may start writing again, painting, dancing, speaking, dreaming differently. This is because your energy is no longer being siphoned by old roles and old wounds. It's now being recycled back to you. Use it. Let it move through you. Let it become something tangible. And finally, your daily rhythm will need to evolve. The person you were before was on autopilot, rushing, responding, performing. But the new you? You are intuitive now, intentional, restful and responsive, not reactive. Ask yourself, what pace feels like integrity to my nervous system? What time of day do I feel most aligned with my voice, my thoughts, my truth? What practices bring me back into my body without demanding perfection? It may be morning walks instead of scrolling. It may be cooking slow meals instead of eating between tasks. It may be choosing to journal instead of vent. It may be speaking less, but meaning more. Gemini, the life you're meant to live is not a performance. It's a resonance. Every part of it should sound like you, look like you, feel like you. This is your homecoming, not to a place, but to a way of living that is finally aligned with the person you've worked so hard to become. Let your life rise to meet your worth. Let your routines bend to fit your energy. Let your days be built around what fills you, not what empties you. You're not redesigning your life to impress others. You're redesigning it to sustain yourself. And that's the greatest wealth of all. Gate 5. When you lead through wholeness, everything aligns. Gemini, what happens when you stop surviving and start embodying? When your life is no longer stitched together by obligation, fear, or delay, but by clarity, presence, and peace, you become magnetic, not in the superficial sense of being noticed, but in the sacred sense of becoming undeniable. This is a season where you begin to lead, not by force, not by control, but by example, by living in a way that proves healing is not only possible, it is contagious. That living with boundaries doesn't make you cold, it makes you clean. That choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's the highest form of self-respect. Gemini, you've been to the quiet labor of repair. You questioned your worth, unlearned your programming, chosen peace over performance. Now, the energy you used to spend keeping everything together on the outside is finally being rerouted back inward, and with it comes your authority. Let's clarify what this new leadership looks like. It's not loud. It doesn't demand. It doesn't seek applause. It's subtle. It's steady. It's rooted. It's walking into a room without explaining your presence. It's holding your standards not as a weapon, but as an offering. It's allowing people to rise to meet you, or quietly letting them fall away. Take Anya, a Gemini moon and ascendant. After years of dimming her voice to avoid confrontation, She decided to stop softening her no. She didn't announce it. She simply practiced it. No more over-explaining. No more rescuing. Within weeks, people either stepped into healthier dynamics with her or disappeared. The result? Emotional clarity, a lighter body, and a deep, humming sense of self-trust she'd never known before. Or think of Leo, a Gemini sun who had always led to performance. Humor, intellect, constant output. When he stopped trying to manage how others perceive him and started speaking only when he truly had something to say, he feared he'd become invisible. The opposite happened. His words landed deeper. People listened longer. Why? Because he was no longer performing. He was embodying. Gemini, you've always had the gift of adaptability, but now that gift is evolving into alignment. You no longer bend to match the room. You allow the room to adjust to your frequency. This shift will ripple outward. In your relationships, people will feel safer around you, not because you placate, but because your clarity creates structure. Those who thrive in your new energy will respect your pace, your needs, your voice. They'll show up because they want to, not because you convince them to. In your work, you'll begin to create from overflow, not from expectation. Your ideas will no longer be crafted to hit or sell. They'll emerge from deep coherence, and that authenticity will attract exactly the people who are ready to receive them. And in your spiritual life, something beautiful unfolds. You'll begin to feel like you are the channel, not separate from the divine, but part of it. Your life itself becomes a practice. Your words, your boundaries, your rest, your laughter, all of it becomes sacred. Because when you live from wholeness, everything you touch is infused with clarity. And yes, there will still be moments of doubt, of old patterns tugging at your sleeve, the urge to prove, to fix, to apologize for taking up space. But now you know better. Now, when fear whispers, you're too much, you'll smile and respond, I'm finally enough for myself. Gemini, the world doesn't need you to be smaller. It needs you to be centered, to speak with grounded honesty, to move with intentional energy, to offer your gifts without begging for them to be seen. You are not here to convince. You are here to radiate. This new version of leadership is subtle, but it's seismic. Because when someone sees you standing in your truth, without hostility, without apology, they remember something ancient within themselves. They remember what it looks like to live free. So don't be surprised if people begin asking, what changed about you? Don't be surprised if opportunities seem to find you, if rooms open without you knocking, if love arrives without you chasing. This isn't magic. It's magnetism, the kind that can only exist when you no longer trade your energy for validation. And that's the lesson of Gate 5. You don't need to be everything to everyone. You just need to be fully yourself, and the rest will organize around that. So lead, Gemini, not through strategy, but through state. Let your life be the medicine. Let your peace be the message. Let your joy be the legacy. You've come so far, not just to receive more, but to become more. Conclusion, you've already shifted. Now stay there. Gemini, this is no longer about waiting for something to change. It's about recognizing that the change has already occurred. Within you, you are not who you were at the start of this journey. The version of you who tolerated imbalance, who postponed their dreams, who poured energy into people and systems that never reciprocated. That version no longer holds power. What has taken its place is someone more whole, more honest, more aligned. Someone who understands that receiving is not weakness, it's wisdom. Someone who no longer sacrifices themselves in the name of peace, but instead radiates peace from within. And as you step forward, you do so with a quieter confidence, a deeper sense of self, and an unshakable knowing. You no longer owe the world your exhaustion to prove your worth. You've paid your dues. Now the universe is paying you back, and it's your job to keep it, to hold it, to let it land. The path from here is not about striving harder. It's about staying softer, trusting what you become, protecting what you've earned, and choosing again and again the life that truly reflects your energy, not your old fears. If this message stirred something inside you, if you feel a quiet shift in new steadiness or a call to step into your next chapter, I invite you to share in the comments. What are you done tolerating? What are you now choosing for yourself? Your story has power. and your voice could be the mirror someone else is waiting to see. Subscribe if you haven't, because from here on, it's not about surviving change. It's about embodying it. And Gemini, you were born for this evolution. You are no longer reaching. You are remembering. And your life is about to respond in the most extraordinary ways.